you to forget everything you think you know. I'm McLees, the alternative rebel, and you're listening to the Know Better, Do Better podcast, where we challenge health narratives from traditional myths to holistic truths that transform beliefs. Let's not waste another minute, so join me now. Ladies and gentlemen, I have been looking forward to today's interview. It's just fantastic how things work out. I have before me Jonathan Otto. I've seen his docuseries. If you have not seen him yet, you are going to see him because he has incredible work, promotion of holistic health options all over the place, all over the world. And he has a new docuseries, I believe, coming out here soon in April.
Yeah.
I think. Yeah, April.
Yeah, exactly. You're right. It's start of April.
And so we are diving into a subject today that might be completely off the deep end for some of you that are new to holistic health. But I promise you, if you hang in there and listen with us, not only are you going to learn some incredible things, which I'm very excited about because I don't know too much about this subject, but your eyes are going to be open to some new awareness and some new possibilities about what could be possible for you, your health, or maybe the health of someone else. So we're delving into urine therapy today. Jonathan, I want to thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to be here with us.
Welcome, Autumn. It's an honor. And I'm excited to share on this subject. I think it's just one of the most important things to give back to humanity. I think that the more you research this and you realize that it's all part of the natural biological process that we're born into the world from, and that God arguably ordained it, it's there, yet it was robbed from us on the day that we were born. And so there is a responsibility there, being a truth teller, to bring this back to people, let people make their own decisions. And it's not something that, people have to do it this or that way, or have to do it all, let alone have some kind of specific regime that they're kind of feeling coerced into doing. But instead, it's a freedom aspect. It's knowledge is power. And if you knew that you had a tool when you needed it the most, let's say if it was a snake bite, or I saved a young girl's life from a scorpion bite recently through urine therapy. And that's something, if you're, in this case, out in the middle of nowhere in Africa, if you knew it had a chance of helping you, in this case, it was a complete reversal in hours of that envenomation process, then you'd feel empowered. And that's how people should feel when they listen to this.
I love that. So this is an ancient practice. Let's step into that side of it as we prepare, because I had actually never even heard of this. And I have seen some of your docuseries. I've seen you with Dr. Pompa, just things floating around. And so it's fairly new to me. And I felt like I had heard of everything. So let's hear about just some of this as an ancient practice. I think we know why it gets a bad rap, but I mean, apparently it's been used across cultures for centuries. So can we delve into that a little bit?
Absolutely. So it's interesting that while people think that perhaps we live in a time when health has been the best in history, we could argue the exact opposite, that it arguably could be the worst it's been in history in the West and in America. And people compare to the mid-1800s when they had a lot of sanitation issues in cities particularly, and they take that as the litmus for how cultures around the world have lived. But that's not true. And then if you have acute solutions for challenges that may allow people to prevent death, but not to be healthy. And so in terms of health, you look at the longest cultures, living cultures in the world, they typically are ancient cultures. So they're continuing practices, and they're unscathed from like Big Pharma and the types of approaches that we typically use in the West for disease. So then you look at the Egyptians, you look at Jews, ancient Hebrew Jews, considering that there was a lot of information exchange even historically between Egyptians and Jews due to, like, you look at the biblical account there, but a strong historical presence there, to the point where even in Europe in the early 1400s with the Black Death, and how it was urine therapy that was actually largely a huge part of how the Jews were, so much to the extent that they were largely unaffected by the Black Death from a bird's eye perspective, to the point where they were blamed for actually creating it, because it was like, well, it's not affecting them. And they had sanitation laws, as well that they were adhering to. But the practice of urine therapy makes a lot of sense, because when you have an acute infection, if your body produces antibodies, whoever you are, whatever you have at your disposal or resources, you can access those antibodies directly. So it makes sense why that would have been effective for these acute conditions that were bacteria based, that the urine has antibacterial, antifungus, antifungal properties, anti-venom properties, neoplastons, which are anti-tumor cells for cancer, which is heavily studied in modern medicine. So you look at all these ancient practices, and then cultures that are around today that are ancient, like Indian and Chinese, they have a strong history of it. And it does make sense then why you have large population growth in places like India. And because if you look at when acute infections would go out, that they would always have a solution, and dating back not only hundreds, but even thousands of years. Greeks, Romans, a lot of the Roman economy at different periods of time was based on urine, where they had a urine taxation system. So it wasn't even just for medicine. They were using it for economic properties, like everything from fertilizers to fuel sources. Today, it could be used to power a lot of our technology. Because it is highly electric, which is super fascinating. Yeah. So there's so many different amazing things to it.
Wow. Okay. So you've kind of started to give us a glimpse into it, but mainstream medicine calls urine a waste product. So let's further expand, and just hit that head on. How do you counter that narrative? And with any sort of scientific information as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's interesting that it's given that brushstroke where even mainstream medical people, professionals, whatever, if they're saying that, they should actually be more integrous with their research to say that some of it is waste or a lot of it is waste, but some of it's not. And that's the reason why it's used in a lot of mainstay medications, from Premarin, which is pregnant mare urine. It's in the name, Premarin, pregnant mare urine, or murine for eye infections or ear infections, which is a murine. It's urine with the letter M in front of it, but it's a synthetic form of urine, which is carbamide with hydrogen peroxide for the ears, or urokinase, which is the enzyme that breaks down blood clots and is active against. Where do you think that came from? Urokinase. It's not just the name, it's one of the 30 or so different enzymes discovered in urine. It's obviously in high concentration because it's just that extract, which would be possible, by the way. You would just take urine and you would extract the urokinase in each urination, and then you could make all these medications, but in the safest form without the downside. Urea, which is not only used for skincare products, but it's actually an anti-cancer agent and been heavily studied as such. But urea it's used because it's so easily absorbed by the body, because it's part of your body. It's your blood filtered and it goes back into your body. But anyway, my point there is saying that they should be more integrous with the fact that let's say that there is waste, which there isn't, and I can prove that. But they should say that there is these other things, including stem cells, which would be as much as 100 million, even after only a 24-hour urine sample when it's aged for 3 weeks. And that was an NIH-funded study that came through the Wake Forest University in 2022. So it's only 2025 during the time of this interview, which means that you're likely to hear about it on a show like this and not in the news, because it's a recent discovery. But it confirms what happens in the womb, which comes to why I can prove why it's not a waste product. If urine was a waste product and had any waste in it, babies would die in the womb. And that trumps everything. It trumps every clinical study. It trumps every single piece of scientific data that people would try to throw against it, because babies from around 6 weeks start urinating, and their urine goes through their nose and mouth, and around the 6 to 8 week mark is when they form their lungs as a result of the amniotic fluid. But the amniotic fluid is really just another name for urine, because you can watch it on an ultrasound. You can watch the baby urinate and drink even immediately. And they're urinating about every 1 to 3 hours. They drink hundreds of milliliters per day. Now, the argument against this would now come in where someone would say, yeah, but that's a baby. They're in a kind of a toxin-free environment. They're not breathing oxygen through their lungs. And because of some significant potential differences that exist in this state, then they can do that, whereas we can't. But that's an ill-founded argument because of the environmental working group study on umbilical cord, blood, and how many toxins have been discovered. So when they tested for only 400, they found 287, which would account for only a few hundred of the tens to hundreds of thousands that they could look for. But of those, they found 180 that are proven to cause cancer, birth defects, and brain deformations. So now the question you have to ask yourself, when the baby is getting those chemicals through the umbilical cord while they're growing, while every organ is being constructed, and everything that is in their environment is collecting as part of the whole, because urine is anything is transdermal. Things that go in your skin go into your body because your skin it's transdermal. It'll soak in what's on the outside, and you'll get those toxins. Hence why you should be considerate about what you're showering, etc. How do the babies survive? That's the big question. And the answer is actually their urine is what causes them to survive, because while they get those chemicals, they produce antibodies to those chemicals, those toxins. And then when they drink those, that signals the body to remove those. And so it's the basis of homeopathy, and the basis of vaccinology was based on urine therapy, because that's where you see it real time. Simple.
Oh my gosh. So this is perfect segue into my next question, because as I started to learn about this, very vaguely learned through, just like I said, little clips and things, I was thinking this sounds like a homeopathic effect. And for those that don't fully know homeopathy, it is essentially introducing the body to something that it needs to kind of, I think, provoke the body to respond in that way or in that area that it needs attention. And maybe not the best definition, but you get the idea.
Yeah, exactly.
So then let's expand. What is happening when when you reintroduce urine to the body? Like, we're reintroducing it, it's kind of having that effect. So is it picking up on what the body's lacking? Is it picking up on very important information that's taking place in the body, where then it knows this is its own contents? Because we're intelligently designed by God. I think you and I are absolutely on the same page with that. So I have no doubt that there can be incredible, amazing things happening, but what is it that we know is taking place?
Yeah. So blood is filtered through the kidneys, and the kidneys are the most robust filtration you could imagine. And my comparison is this: if you took a New York skyscraper and the whole thing was filled with a filtration system, and then if you put something in the top and you got a drop out of the bottom, and if it was that kind of filtration, you would feel like that's pretty safe. It's got all this it's got every carbon filter and every potential chemical filter, and it's going through some kind of reverse osmosis, doing all this. And then at the end, you get this purification. You'd feel safe with that. Even if you were to do something like that, it would not even come close to the power of the kidneys and how well they filter. And because of that, when something goes through the kidneys, that's the substance you should trust the most, not the least. And so when blood is filtered through the kidneys, it's still blood. So what you call urine is actually blood, and it's filtered blood. The medical name is plasma ultrafiltrate, which is plasma blood ultra filtered. So when blood is ultra filtered, in this case, it's pressed through these tiny tubes called nephrons. That squeezing process is part of that purification. You have a substance that has all the properties of what's in the blood, but it's in a sterile form or sterile-like form, and certainly more sterile than the blood. And this is where people start to really unravel, because if the urine is toxic, then the body is toxic, and blood is toxic. And what hope do you have? If the purity of and the filtration of your body is toxic, then how do you even expect to have good health? And why would people be so easily convinced that they could eat the flesh and the blood of an animal that hasn't been filtered? And then all of a sudden, once it's filtered, then you start freaking out like, this is a waste product, this is where it dumps its waste. But you're eating it straight in the blood. Where did that come from? Where it came from the blood. And why are you now freaking out about something that's being filtered through the kidneys that's actually translucent? It's clear because it's a filtered substance that is 98% water. And that part that's not is all these different compounds that all of which, if you research them, they're not harmful. Now, the things that people get confused about would be the mercury or the lead that you may find as markers in your urine, but it's not the same thing. And this is how it works, that when it goes back in, to answer your question, Autumn, is that it's now going to signal your body is that this is the problem. And so it actually needs a signaling mechanism where the body will identify in a non-harmful form. And so you want your urine to be able to show you everything that's in your body. And water is a substance that holds memory. And this is why you've got experiments like Masaru Emoto, the New York Times bestseller, that shows the water crystals and how they respond to words. And so your thoughts, your words, your things that are going on in your body, especially in this case, most importantly, the signature of every single toxin, nutrient deficiency that you have, all that information is condensed into your urine, and it's a signaling mechanism. That's why it makes sense why babies thrive in the womb. That's why it makes sense why C-sections, when women have them, the inside is healed, whereas the outside you see is scarred. There's no scar tissue on the inside. The stem cells, the urea, the enzymes, all of that process that's happening inside of the womb through the baby's urine, which it's basically like getting a stem cell transplant inside your body. The baby's doing it for you because it's continually providing that environment. But now when your body's now signaled to remove those toxins, as well as get information where every neurotransmitter that's in your body and blood, and these are neurochemicals that, whether it's serotonin, epinephrine, norepinephrine, dopamine, they'll all be in your urine. So now those levels, those markers, your body's not dumb. And when you're deficient in all these things, it doesn't just dump them out because it doesn't want them. Your body needs to balance blood pressure and needs to balance these things, hence why you need to urinate. It's not optional. But when you get this substance, it has the ability to correct all these different mechanisms because it comes with all the information, what's in your body, in your blood, and teaches your body what it's lacking, what it needs, and gives you that in a form that's bioavailable to you. Whereas every supplement you take, and I have a supplement company, so why would I tell you this, may not be bioavailable to you. You may not be able to digest it. Whereas in this case, it's absorbed into the body. And this is why we see every type of condition imaginable have tremendous success with urine therapy. And it's been heavily documented outside of me and in books like Your Imperfect Medicine by Martha Christie, from everything from cancer to autoimmune disease, and often the things that people could never get answers for, they see tremendous success with using urine therapy.
Wow, this is incredibly fascinating. Why do you think this isn't out there more? Is it just because of the gruesome concept of it?
And it wouldn't be gruesome, because why are we the first society almost that believes urine is disgusting?
Right.
Disgust was the first where they got us on this one. And so this, and for me to talk about this, I get insulted every day, but I don't get insulted because I don't take it to heart. I think it's so funny that people don't know. And, I didn't know either. And so I kind of make comedy of it myself, and I don't mind people laughing at me because it brings the conversation to the fore. I don't mind. I'm here with a clear mission to help people with their health. And I'm happy to be a foot soldier, a casualty of war in that sense. But yeah, it's Big Pharma didn't want us to know about this, and it got demonized so long ago that people don't even realize that they're demonizing something that's a medicine. They don't realize that it's got lost in the ether of things. And this was the biggest thing that would not make us subject to the harmful medications and injections, to say it that way. So they really had to demonize this because it would really be a big threat. And at this point, the lies become so deep. Like Mark Twain said, it's easier to fool people than to convince people they've been fooled. And so that unraveling and the humility it takes to go through that is a big part of the reason. So I'd say the human hubris is actually the thing that stands in the way of this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no room for this in the medical monopoly, for sure.
Even the holistic doctors are like, not all of them, because I educate them continually on it, and they listen to me, they give me a stage for it. I'm continually educating holistic guys, but even those guys are scared. But the people want it. Not all of them. Like, there's a lot of great holistic doctors, but there's not many people willing to put their head out of the foxhole. They'll do it privately. They'll tell their patients about it privately. But there's a few bullets to be taken on this one.
Well, bravo, Jonathan. We're here and we're proud and we're We're here for it. You started to get into some of the testimonies. You said cancer and just so many different conditions. I mean, cancer is a big one, obviously. So that's pretty extreme. And that shows, are you talking, let me just clarify. When you say someone with, let's say, that's taken on urine therapy as part of their treatment, I mean, are they like changing their diet, taking some supplements, and doing urine therapy? Do you have any example of what that might look like?
Yeah, exactly. Well, generally, I would tell people never to do anything as one holy grail, and this is just what I do. Whether they're doing ivermectin, fenbendazole, chlorine dioxide. I don't know what platforms. Be careful with, just so you know, chlorine dioxide is the one that we've on mainstream channels. But if you're on alternative, then that's not a problem. But
Yes, we have an episode on that, and I know I have to be careful. That's another favorite of mine.
yeah, great. Well, I'll let you be careful with that editing, but these are game changers. Red light therapy, that one's not censored, thankfully, and they're absolutely remarkable. And so I would always tell people to look at all of these therapies and look at why you're doing that certain thing, for how that complements your treatment, and how you're looking at supplying the body with information that it needs, and you're looking to remove toxins, you're looking to support the energy production within your cells, amplify the voltage of your cells. Urine is electric, chlorine dioxide is electric, red light therapy is an electromagnetic process that causes the body to generate voltage through the mitochondria. And all of these things then go together, because people that have cancer are tired and their body is fatigued. Their cells are senescent, which means they're not functioning properly, and they're dying, but they're not dead, and they lack what they need to undergo the process of autophagy or apoptosis, programmed cell death. And so you're seeking to complement all of these different aspects. So urine therapy is anti-parasitic, and aged urine especially is anti-parasitic.
Wow.
Yeah, because it's high alkalinity. Stem cell aspect, I'm not saying that stem cells naturally necessarily anti-parasitic, but it's such a strong substance that what you'll find is, if you look at any of the anti-parasitics, green harvested black walnut hulls, or mimosa pudica seed, or you keep going through the list, neem, typically clove, they're typically all very bitter and strong. And so you'll find that with aged urine as well, very, very strong, which people can do rectally, by the way. They could do like a 30 milliliter syringe rectally. Yes.
Really?
Yeah, because then you could get the stem cells. Where's the disgust there? It's kind of nauseating to think that people would be so adverse to that. Why? What's the big?
Yeah. No, I'm just forever, like, my mind is blown at how many things you can do rectally. Coffee enemas. I've heard of wheatgrass, garlic enemas, like all these things. And of course, I mean, why couldn't you put urine up your rectum? Just makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So if people are doing coffee enemas, it's going to make it way more beneficial.
Yeah.
You just have to think about, what if I could tell you that all disease was dehydration and intracellular hydration? Your cells are not hydrated.
Right.
And now what would be the best way to hydrate? And the reason why urea is used in skincare products, and practically the only clinically proven skin moisturizer in the world, is because it's the part of urine that is so highly absorbed by the body, because it's part of the body. It's blood filtered. So what do you think? It goes straight back in. Water could just roll off you, and yes, it'll get absorbed to a degree, but in terms of, it doesn't have all the salts that are necessary, because you're a saltwater being. So your urine, because it has those salts, it's just going to go back in. It's going to get highly absorbed to the highest capacity. So hydration issues get corrected. And I can speak for that, because I was drinking 2 gallons of water a day and feeling like I was dying of dehydration. That's how bad my hydration issue was. And that was causing the chronic fatigue and all these different things that I had, all the diagnoses from Lyme disease and everything, the blood viruses, Epstein-Barr, cytomegalovirus, Ross River fever, glandular fever. I had all these blood viruses. So this was tremendously helpful for me to resolve the hydration issue. And then the fatigue issue, which in this case was just drinking the first morning urine, as little as 3 ounces, as much as the full morning output. And I would just do that regularly. It just became a habit. When you're fasting, if people said that urine tasted bad, they're wrong, because it's like saying blenders taste bad. The blender doesn't taste bad. What you put in the blender did taste bad. People are not really eating what what their body needs. Cooked
Mm-hmm.
food doesn't actually translate super well. So it does actually cater to a very Edenic concept where you're eating fresh fruits and vegetables
Mm-hmm.
and raw vegetables like cruciferous vegetables. And then because they're high in water content, it's like fasting, and the urine then becomes clear. It tastes like nothing except for water with a pinch of salt in it. Whereas, you ate a bunch of, pretty processed food or highly cooked food or a lot of meat or whatever, and it just starts tasting like kind of like a smorgasbord of what you ate, and it's kind of, but it's still fine, and that's why people can do it at whatever point. But
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was going to be my next question was, so share with us, you started to say anywhere from 3 ounces to the full amount. And first morning is best. And I mean, is there any recommendation for, do you just start slow? Do you jump right in? Does it not matter?
yeah, some people say to start low on like 10 drops or 20 drops in a dropper because, look, be careful. And it does even talk about that in books like Your Own Perfect Medicine. But I've never seen people have any issues with starting with 1, 2, 3 ounces, or even just going all in. And I've gone 6 days where I ate nothing and drank my urine almost exclusively, drank maybe about 20% water. But then you're kind of replicating the womb at that point. And it's tremendous. And you see people have all kinds of turnarounds of all kinds of things. And it's the easiest way to clear up skin issues, and everything else. So there's no rules, and it can be as much or as little as what people want. If they don't want to consume it orally, the rectal makes it really easy. They could hold as much as they can. Like they could urinate right away and do it rectally, let it absorb as much as possible, and then like let out whatever they can't hold. Or they could just do the 30 ml syringe of 3-week urine, which is how you got to the 100 million stem cells, according to the Wake Forest University study, which were all adults. So 100 million stem cells. People know them for injecting them, but you can't see that replicated in nature. Breast milk has stem cells in it. Stem cells are actually supposed to be orally consumed, just saying. Biologically speaking, babies drinking urine in the womb that's rich in stem cells. So they therefore must survive the stomach acid and things like that people would typically think that they wouldn't. But then rectal, again, is kind of like putting it into the bloodstream. But yeah, that's it. People can kind of look at any combination, soaking the feet in it, soaking any part of their body. I've got shorts on right now, but this is an example of when I had like a major issue there on my leg. As you can see, it's clear, but I had like a thick eczema type rash there on the inside of my leg, like a shingles type reaction. Yeah. And it was like almost the whole part of the inside of my thigh, and it was painful, bleeding, thick. It like looked bad. And I actually took a insulin needle and took my first morning urine and injected just into the top part of the skin, about 5 little bubbles. And then immediately I didn't feel it. Like it was like it was gone. I could still see it. But then 3 days later, it was like on its way out. 3 days later, there was like nothing there, no scarring. So the signaling process I'm talking about with antibodies is real time. People will see it. Warts will just disappear. If you put it on any wart, like my wife did it and I convinced her to do it. And she was even grossed out about putting her finger in urine, but she woke up the next morning and it was gone after dipping it in urine after years of using wart creams and it being painful and growing back. Talk about self-signaling, and it costs nothing. And there's nothing that no one can take this away from you. It's that there's tremendous power in that. And every day, like as I read all the insults that people try to throw at me, then embedded in all of them, you'll see all the people that are talking about everything that happened to them as a result of doing it, either through learning about it through me, my colleagues, or that they'd already known about it. And all the skin stuff clears up for people. It's crazy all the time. It's amazing. I can't say all the time, but it's so frequent. It certainly comes across that way. But yeah, the cancer research on it is amazing, which you alluded to earlier. That was heavily studied. It was the go-to cancer therapy for the centuries. So it's, but even in modern medicine, a lot of clinical studies on it, especially in the 50s in the United States, Japan, and China, Europe. Those places particularly had a ton of research coming out, and they were finding almost unbelievable results in clinical case study trials where they would see the majority of the group clear up from the cancer they're experiencing through either urine or urine extractions. whether it was urea, urokinase, or other extracts, which were referred to as H11, retin, directin, various names it was given, all listed in the book, Your Own Perfect Medicine.
Yeah, this is just so fascinating to me. And you said you helped, this was part of your protocol in helping your viruses and things that you were battling as well. This was a part of your regimen.
Absolutely.
Incredible.
And in combination with red light therapy and chlorine dioxide and anti-parasitic protocols. But because I was doing a lot of things, and then I introduced urine therapy and saw a massive change, then it was a variable that I could isolate as being responsible for a lot of things. And like with an example with what was going on with my leg, that was because I was doing everything else I was doing, nothing else was working. It's pretty easy to isolate it and pinpoint it to the urine in that case, considering the immediate results. And I understand that that's anecdotal, but you'll see so many cases just like, and so I think that a lot of people are suffering unnecessarily, and I think it's really sad. And so that's why I'm willing to talk about this. But yeah, we keep seeing like all kinds of reactions of people that, if you talk about the vaccine injuries from COVID and the vaccines, they're remarkable. I saw a case, Gloria, she works for me now, actually. Gloria Charlene is a coach in my company, but I met her at an event. She was part of like what kind of basically almost turns out like a leper colony. When I say that, what I mean is all the people that got vaccine injured, they often go to events and they, it's kind of crazy for me to say it like that. But my point in saying that is that they're all so sick and they're degrading so quickly, and they have all these issues of suicides happening because people just can't tolerate it anymore. And they had a quality of life before, and it was lost after they got these vaccines. And she was an example of that happening to her. And I explained to her about urine, and I went to the bathroom, got a glass of urine, drank it in front of the group to explain to them. And she was the one out of the group that was willing to do it. About 3 or so weeks later, after kind of convincing herself that this would be a good idea. And after having 16 days of bleeding a month, an induced period every month, worse than childbearing. Like, she's got a child, so she could comment on that. But she had such horrific pain. Her heart palpitations were so bad. Her heart was feeling like it was beating out of her chest. And then she started with the urine therapy. And that was the last day she ever had a heart palpitation. It's been 18 months now. It's never come back. For that to happen in one day, I'd tell you if it took 3 months. I could tell you it took 2 months until her periods became painless. And look, it was just onward and upward. She lost 20 pounds within that first month. And so if you just put in urine therapy, weight loss into Google, and you just click on images, you'll see all the before and afters. People are talking about it.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, people are losing tremendous amounts of weight because it's toxins. Most of weight gain is toxin related. So think about that from antibodies, like signal your body with antibodies and let the body deal with toxicity.
The spell of those, yeah.
Wow. Retention goes down. And then you look at something like red light therapy works in a similar way to combat toxicity, and it's getting used instead of liposuction. And we've done a lot with our red light therapy company and giving people their lives back. And that, if you want to talk about a combo therapy, that would be the thing to combine together, because there's not many things I could say, okay, look, you do one session, you get 17% eye improvement based on clinical studies. That's
eye improvement?
Yeah, 17% after one session. I've seen way more than that as well after one session in 90-year-olds, like mid-90s women, as an example.
From red light therapy?
Yes.
Whoa.
Yeah, mitochondria. They're in the eye cells. There are hundreds of millions of mitochondria. Hundreds of millions, but there are like hundreds of thousands per cerebellum brain cell that you have. And so there's a close connection between your eyes and the brain. And your eyes are actually like solar panels. They're just designed to receive light for the body. But so is every part of your body. That's why your body's actually very translucent. And so you'll soak in the light will get to your organs, that your organ cells are the ones that have all the mitochondria in them. That's the energy powerhouse of the body. And they produce adenosine triphosphate, ATP. Your cells now have energy. If your cells have energy, they can do everything they're supposed to do.
Right.
Parasites are restricting that energy. And then like the clinical studies on that, there's one that shows a 40% drop in breast cancer on PubMed in 24 hours using 660 nanometer red light. on both triple negative and non-triple negative breast tumor cell lines, 40% drop in the proliferation of breast tumor cells. Yeah, that one is a good one. There's a prostate cancer study with 413 participants. 49% go into remission completely in a 2-year study. 13.5% were in the control group that didn't take red light. So it meant a four times increase in the likelihood, 400% increase in your likelihood of beating prostate cancer. In this case, arguably all of them were doing, or the majority of them were all doing conventional therapies, but adding in the red light therapy gave them a 4 times greater likelihood of achieving remission. People need to know about that. And the photodynamic therapy, where you use curcumin, methylene blue, berberine, they enhance the ability for your cells to absorb the light, both the tumor cells and healthy cells, which enhances something called mitophagy, which is your mitochondria undergoing autophagy and apoptosis, where they die and replace with healthy new mitochondria. So we're seeing all kinds of things happen with red light therapy, and it's been one of the most rewarding parts of my career, and that's why I'm really passionate about what we're doing with my company, RedLife, because it's giving people their life back in a very easy and affordable way.
Yeah, I'd love to have you back on to like do a whole episode on that, because this topic combined with that, I know some of the benefits of red light and how incredible that can be, but you just offloaded so much more that is scientifically backed. That's incredible. Well, Jonathan, as we wrap this up, I want to hear from you. You kind of gave us a little smorgasbord of like some great, incredible modalities. What would be your top 3 tips to give to our listeners as we wrap this up?
Awesome. So I would say that, don't make a decision as to whether you will or won't do urine therapy. Just read about it. Just research. So that's tip number 1. Research about it. Knowledge is power. Just have that knowledge under your belt. It could save your life, like it did with this 14-year-old in Kenya around this time last year. Just having that knowledge, or it could be used for some kind of skin reaction that you're having, or athlete's foot. That's a slam dunk. Like there's a lot of things that you're kind of walking around with. Then you may end up having more confidence to use it in a more life-threatening situation, to use it for the anti-tumor cells like that are called anti-neoplastons in a case of a terminal cancer diagnosis. I've got some pretty significant people around the world doing this, that many of which won't talk about it publicly, but I've even got like super high net worth people, celebrities, billionaires, like they're engaging with these types of things. So it's not for people that are just, uneducated and just get suckered in by things. They're people with every resource at their disposal, and they have they could throw their money at any type of treatment, but why would they be willing to use something, in this case, that's autologous, which means healing arising from your own cells and tissues? And that's exactly what we're seeing real time. And then second, I would say look at red light therapy as just being something that could just change your life. And the reason why it's so powerful as well is because it like the power costs nothing, close to nothing, because it's LED technology. The studies that I cited were all based on LEDs, and so hence why you'd want to do that, generally speaking. And people don't understand. They think of LEDs as bad, but LEDs in this case, because they don't flicker, they're constant. It's called light emitting diode. They're the most effective for delivering light into the cells, whereas about 90% of the power goes into light, whereas with an incandescent bulb or a halogen bulb, about 90% will go into the heat. So not the light. And so in this case, we're really working on the light and that optical spectrum between about 600 to 1100 nanometers. And on that as well, Autumn, if you'd like, after I do the third point, we could share with people where they could get some of the devices that we've put into the market. Yeah, awesome. So the third one would be to just look at whatever you're struggling with, not by the name that it's been given, but by the symptoms that you're experiencing that connect you with the toxic source that it's coming from, which may be driving the deficiencies, that you're facing, versus just plugging things up, even with like, taking this or that supplement. And, I see people, and I've been down this rabbit hole myself, and trying to solve problems with, I'm taking like 50 different supplements, trying to solve all these different problems that are all downstream. But you could take a lot less if you're just dealing with the toxic threats, like a parasite cleanse is a great example, that's driving so much of the deficiency that causes you to need all these other expensive supplements. But if you can get rid of the parasites, then then all of that will normalize. And that's just one example. And within that last point, I'll say then stacking the therapies is what helps the enhancement of the therapies. So an anti-parasitic taken together with red light is much more powerful than either of those separately, based on clinical studies, because both of them will kill parasites, and the red light therapy especially proven to kill intracellular parasites that are disrupting cell function, mitochondrial function, stem cell production. Red light therapy in and of itself will do that, but when combined with anti-parasitic agents will enhance its ability to kill those parasites. So look at stacking those things, and you'll see everything change.
So good. Share with us where people can find you, connect with you, follow you on social media, your website, your new docuseries, and of course your supplements and red light options.
Awesome. So just look me up, Jonathan Otto, on all the social platforms, whether it's Instagram, and you'll find me by just putting in my name. And we're releasing a lot of great clips, and that will just keep you motivated daily. You'll see my my enthusiastic take on life. And I one thing that I'm really good at is motivating people, and so I'd love to be a motivation in your life on a daily basis by just following my free content that I'm putting out, just to keep you on the straight and narrow pathway to health and life and abundance. And so then TikTok, and we go by True Health Secrets on TikTok, Instagram, Jonathan Otto, jono.otto, but you'll find me by just putting my name. Red Light Therapy, myredlight.com. myredlight.com, and you could use the code at checkout, which is autumn, like the season, which is autumn's name, and that'll give you an additional 10% off, and also support Autumn and her channel and what she's doing and the great work that she's doing. But what we've offered there is unique, and it is a huge disruptor on the market, because we've got 9 different wavelengths in our devices, which range from 480, 590, the 600s, the 800s, and the 1060s. So because we have all these different frequencies, both and also in dual LEDs, so you've got multiple frequencies, 2 frequencies, both red and near infrared, shining out of each of the lights in the device. So it's a complete even spread and a high concentration of that light over your vital organs. And so that's a huge undertaking there that we've done to create the best products on the market. And they have the highest tested irradiance, which is the amount of power delivered. In this case, it's 205 milliwatts per centimeter squared at 3 inches, and so that's a high delivery. So that's where you see these studies. Yeah. You have to replicate the studies if you want to get the results that are listed in the studies. You can't just get anything and hope that it works. If it's a quarter of the strength of the one that was used in the studies, even though you're seeing the red light, it may not be helping you. And we see this as well with thyroid cases, which a lot of your audience that are female would be concerned, rightfully so, about their thyroid. Even though they have conducted some pretty wonky studies, and even though they don't do the studies right, in some of these cases, some of them are great, but one in particular I'm referencing, they give them red light twice a week for 3 weeks, and then they test them 3 months later, whereas they should have given it maybe 3 or even 5, 6, 7 days a week, and then tested and had them do it for 3 months, and then tested them or tested them at the end of the time that they did it. But even with those parameters of stopping then thereafter, and then about 2 months later, they are showing a dramatic drop in their need for thyroid replacement hormones, like levothyroxine, and they're using it for not only these cases but thyroid cancer, and showing tremendous results. They're showing it reversing the effects of radiation or radioactive iodine to the thyroid. They're seeing it because there's a lot of mitochondria in the thyroid. So it's so easy in a way. Like if somebody's struggling with thyroid conditions, just get your thyroid in front of a light. More importantly, get your whole body in front of a light, because your thyroid function is modulated by your cerebellum and modulated by your heart health and your intestines and your gut and the microbiome, which are highly sensitive to light therapies. So look at, and the liver and the toxicity of the liver is going to affect the thyroid, because your liver is your detoxification organ. There's a lot of mitochondria per liver cell. So look at how you can correct all these functions simultaneously, and by just putting your whole body in front of a red light, and watch the changes that happen. But you can learn more about that and see all the presentations I've done on that at myredlight.com, and look forward to serving you with that. And we've got some great discounts there and free gifts for people on the page.
I am all about that. All about it. Jonathan, thank you so much for all you do, your mission in all of this. It is truly incredible. And we're behind you 100%. Can't wait for your new docuseries. I want to thank you so much for taking time to come on. And cheers to urine therapy, y'all that are listening. It's going to be incredible. So we'll have to circle back around, have you back on for a red light episode. But thank you so much again for everything that you do.
Thank you, Autumn. God bless you. We'll be in touch.
All right, friends, we'll see y'all next time, same place. Bye for now. Thanks for joining The Revolution, where we urge you to not just listen, but act. Make sure to hit the follow button to never miss an episode, subscribe to the weekly newsletter below, and fuel this podcast's growth by rating, reviewing, and blasting this episode across your network. Knowledge is power, but only if you implement it. Until next time.